I'm recording this video because I don't think the majority of people understand how low the bar actually is and how easy it is to separate yourself from the norm, from the average baseline of individuals. So the reason for this is because right now, distraction in today's society is at an all-time high when it comes to social media, when it comes to porn, when it comes to drugs and alcohol, all of these different things that distract us from our current situation, okay? It's at an all-time high. And a lot of people are relying on these things, which creates these vices from that distraction, okay? But the problem with this is that when we look at this graph here, distraction, as it increases, our awareness of who we are, of our dislikes and our likes, of what we're struggling with, where we want to be, this awareness that makes us human in the first place, it decreases. And 99% of people are falling on this right side of the spectrum, and it's only decreasing. It's only getting worse because more and more people are relying on distraction, okay? And the reason why this is important as well is because when we have awareness, right? When awareness is present in our lives, in our mind, and how we operate, we understand who we are as an individual, it creates clarity. Now we understand what we struggle with. Now we understand where we want to be, the goals that we have for ourselves. And this directly correlates to growing as an individual, right? But with distraction and how present it is, we will never even get to step one, which is awareness. We don't even have the awareness in our day-to-day life, okay? So I want to come over here and I want to talk to you guys about the antidote to staying average. What is the skill that separates the top performers, the highly respected individuals, the people who make the most money, who have the best physique, who have the most sought after lives, right? And who are considered successful? What is the antidote or the skill that they have applied in their life to break this loop of staying average and staying complacent? So for 99% of people, what happens is they experience pain, which is a normal human feeling, a normal human emotion, right? And when they experience this pain, it could be, not being content with their life, struggling, going through a hard time, whatever it is, they resort to distraction, right? Which ends up becoming any of these vices like drugs, alcohol, porn, clubbing, social media, all of these things, right? That numb them of this pain in the moment, right? To take them away from their current situation, and it brings their awareness down. But the main problem with this is that if we look at this little graph here, it's kind of small, but with pain in time, right? Over time, the more they resort to vices, the more they resort to these distractions to numb the pain, it never actually fixes it. It just compounds over and over and over, and then now you have a pain that just completely ruins your life. It completely just makes you feel worse and worse because you never actually attacked the problem head on, right? All you did was use a temporary fix to numb what you were feeling, to break that alignment in what was actually going on so that you didn't have to feel it in the moment, right? And it just creates an immense amount of pain. So now, how do we actually break this loop of resorting to distractions when we have this pain? What is the antidote, okay? The antidote comes down to a 4-step execution, okay? And this is something that I created. And number 1 is finding alignment, okay? What is alignment? What are we struggling with? What is the pain? Taking a step back and understanding why we're going through what we're going through and what are we feeling? Just be in tune with yourself. Take a step back, right? And understand what's actually going on in your life. And once we understand the alignment, number 2, this marker is absolutely terrible. Hold on. Number 2, what is the root? What is the reason we're feeling like this, okay? So if our struggle here is, let's say we're not confident, okay? That's the alignment. That's what we've derived from our situation. We do not feel confident, which is creating this pain, okay? The root. Why do we not feel confident? It could be maybe because we're out of shape. We're not confident in how we look in our image, right? So now, once we have identified that root, number 3 is creating a plan to attack that root, to fix it, right? To actually take care of this pain. So number 3 could be exercising, going to the gym, eating better, moving more, all of these different things that will improve our health, right? Improve our physique, and ultimately actually create a fix to this pain. And the last step here of this execution is acting on it. Because we can create the best plan to fix this problem in our life, but if we don't actually take action on this amazing plan, no matter how good it is, it will never fix anything. And so when we act, it creates urgency, a sense of urgency and execution. And with this, now that we have implemented these two things, it creates a permanent change that attacks this pain from its root, right? Because we understand what we're struggling with, we understand the root, we create a plan around it, and we act on it. And that is how you're going to make this permanent change. But for a lot of people, they just get stuck in this distraction, which is why it is so detrimental. And with these things, like I said, over time, the vices compound, and they become more reliant on these things just because this pain increases, right? So it's kind of like drugs, even though obviously drugs is stated here, but all of these vices could be seen as a drug. The more you use them, the more you're going to need to get the exact same effect. And that is why it's so dangerous. And that is why most people, they sit in their exact situation because they can never understand what's truly wrong. And the greatest skill that you can possess, the antidote to all of this, is just gaining back your awareness, limiting these distractions, right? Gaining back your awareness, creating clarity, and using this execution right here to create change, to create growth. Because now that you understand, I just dropped the cap here, now that you understand this pain in your life, what you're actually struggling with, you can attack it and slowly mold into the person that you want to become, slowly mold into the person who's capable of your goals. But if you can't even understand what you're struggling with, you can't grow as an individual. And that is why it's so important. And for most people, the hardest part, I would say, of all of this is acting, right? Acting on the plan. Because you can understand, I want to get to this place in my life. I want to make more money. I want to be healthy, right? You can understand where your goals lie. You can understand what you're struggling with. But if you can never take the initiative to act, it's going to keep you in this exact same loop, even though we have all of these things, even though we have all of this awareness, all of this clarity. If there is no action, if there's no initiative to take the first step, it's almost pointless. It's almost pointless because now it's almost like it's eating at you even more, because now that you understand all of these problems and actually where you want to be, I feel like this pain just amplifies, because now you're just sitting there wasting time, and you look back each day and you're like, wow, I did all of this, but I didn't take that first step. I didn't act on it. I didn't actually make that change in my life or try to make that change, right? Because if you want to truly change your life, right, and change these this pain and these goals and actually get after them, it's an accumulation of your actions over time, right? And if you can't take that first step, like I said, how do you expect to let that progress compound? And I'm kind of just drawing all over this whiteboard, but I need you guys to understand that the action is an accumulation. So now that we have the awareness, right, and we attack this first pain point, we get the alignment, the root, the plan, we act until we fix it, right? A lot of people, they just give up. They just give up because they're not seeing progress in that immediate, first week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. But you have to understand, you were living in this distraction for a while. This pain was compounding for a while, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So how do you expect to take action, right, and have it be fixed in 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks. You have to be okay with taking the action over and over and over, doing the right things over and over and over again until you can get to that result. Because those results, the goals that you achieve, the things that you want to set out for in your life, you aren't rewarded for the same thing that you do in that day, right? You can act today, but you might not be rewarded for it until 60 days down the line, 90 days down the line. And this is another thing that keeps people trapped because they can't stay consistent for this period of time. Because, like I said, with these distractions, they are immediate return on investments, right? Drugs. You do drugs, you're instantly getting the feeling. You drink alcohol, you're instantly getting the feeling. Porn, you're instantly getting the feeling. Clubbing, social media, all of these things. When you utilize them, you're instantly getting that dopamine hit that distracts you from the situation. But the difference with permanent change and permanent growth is that there is no immediate results. Because what you're trying to actually fix and the purpose of it is so much more important, so much more deeply rooted into your life. So you have to spend a lot more time until you can actually receive the fruits of your actions, the fruits of your labor in trying to change. And that is another very important point to think about as well. But with all of this, I think that if you can adapt this antidote, right? The skill of creating awareness that we talked about and implementing this into your life for each of the things that you struggle with, right? Don't do them all at once, right? Attack one problem in your life at a time. Implement this, stick to it, fix it, right? Create those habits over time. Act until you can receive your goal, reach that blessing that you worked hard for to make that permanent change, and then do the next, and then do the next, right? Because if you do everything at once, it becomes overwhelming, and that just tends to lead you into a spiral and never actually sticking with it because you're just overloading yourself with all of these different problems, all of these different changes, all of these different plans all at once. Start small. Find one struggle, create awareness. Where am I at? Where do I want to be? And what's keeping me from getting there? Implement these steps here, and that's how you're going to mold into the person that you want to become, okay? So yeah, I had this idea and it's absolutely changed my life because I used to be controlled by vices. For me, it was more so video games, clubbing, going out, things like that, right? And eating junk food, binge eating, all of these things. And it just kept me stuck for so long because I wasn't content with my body. I wasn't content with where I was financially. I wasn't content in my relationships with other people, in my social life. And so this kept me stuck for so long. But by allowing myself to pull back on the distractions, create that awareness in my life, create that clarity in who I was as an individual and where I wanted to be, that's when everything switched. That's when I was able to see the growth in my life that I was looking for, right? And it's so fulfilling to make that change rather than just sitting here in these distractions for the rest of your life. It's the worst way to go about things because this pain, it only gets worse and worse and worse, and you have to resort to these vices so much more, and it just sends you into a pit, right? It just sends you into a pit. So I really hope this was informative for you guys and that you can implement this into your life to actually see the changes that you're looking for. I document a lot of information like this on my Instagram. Talk a lot about nutrition, about training, about mindset and shifting your identity and all these different things. So if you guys ever have any questions, go and DM me on Instagram. Make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you guys enjoy this content, let me know in the bottom if you want to see more videos like this. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Peace.